Да наоборот, ну надо, да, жизнь ладно делать, ладно, да. Вот нет, почему это я тебе говорю. Да нет, это все очень. Ага, классно. Да. Наоборот. Как это весело. Да. Ну наоборот, так нет. Да. Ну нет. Ну типа этого, да. Бесплатно как поется, да. Да, вот там и видели, да. Да, вот это главное. Да. Ну вот он про себя так и говорит, что да. Ну да. Это нет. Не надо играть, блин, да не надо играть. Браво, твое это, да. Наоборот, 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 вот это есть. Да. Глюка, да, вот это есть смысл. Нет, есть. Нет, глюка, да. Ну да. наоборот. Наоборот, значит, да.
Hello?
Hello, hello.
Hi.
I'm fine. How are you? What about you?
I'm good.
Very well. By the way, your performance. Your mom said you you performed. You how was it? You overperformed or something? Or something missing?
My competition?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, it was okay.
Yeah, everything okay. Very good. You're proud of yourself. Yeah, I mean, good.
I mean, I could have done better, but I'm fine.
Uh-huh. Okay, but it's anyway very good. All right, very nice. Happy for you, but you are not pleased, as I presume. Yeah. Okay. You can можете отвечать. Okay. Very good. Anyway, I'm happy you are good. Yeah, you are bingo. Okay. So shall we continue? Shall
Yeah.
we presume? Huh? So, how are you? What's new? Something important? Hey, by the way, I don't see your camera yet. It's something. I'm glitchy. Oh. Sorry. Uh-huh. So what was it? We were starting with with the melody, you know. We can produce it, yes, it's music. Yes, we can continue this chapter, let's say, yes. Yes, about Schubert, about I forgot. I don't see you by the camera. Yeah, okay. So, but I think that it is more enough for this, maybe. Yeah. What do you think?
I like it.
So you wanna play this, or maybe you go on, or you wanna play?
I'm not sure.
Okay, not sure. You mean okay, maybe some later. Okay. So for now, if you're interested, yeah, I'm just interrupting. Very easily. Yes, as you remember, it is in F, and it is clef of no, in clef. It is the key of F. Yeah, so it goes. I'll show you number of. Нет, это даже не важно, короче, да. So the scale is F minor. Yes. So that's why it goes like this. Yes. And yes. To be correct, you can make it in A minor, for example. If you make all the steps right. So 1, 2, 3. So you play 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 5, 5. And if you make it correct, you play 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1. So yeah, I don't have the performance. So hope you понимаю. Yes, I can open it, but I just So I just the same. In any key. So it just but original is in F minor. So you can yes. So if you know the scale, короче говоря, you may
Evgeny?
Yes, I'm listening.
One second, I have to grab something really quick.
Okay. Perform. Нет, наоборот.
Okay, I'm back.
So okay. So hopefully if you just if you just understand ну наоборот, So this is default 3, 3, 4, 3, 2, 5, 5, 3, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, and then goes, and we are changing the bass a little bit, the bass. So it goes like, but it sounds weird a little bit, yes? 1. So it goes, yeah, stepwise like this, yeah. So, yeah, but so that's why it is important to maybe if you, yes, you release some steps, you release 3, 3, 4, 3, 2, 5, so, yeah. Yeah, so maybe we'll save it for later, maybe, okay? Or maybe if you want to, you can make it for your decision, yeah. So it goes like F is number 1. F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. In this case, 7 is close, yeah. So if you rename minor, it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. If you're, for example, in G minor, it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sharp 1. And if you're in F minor, it goes, that's where we are. If you're in E minor, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Yes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. Yes. So, obviously, you may hear that there is some, picture people say different, but there is some difference actually in sounding, yeah, like a carol, a little bit, overtuned. So, so it just takes too long. That's why I think that it will be going later. Okay, let us proceed with your exercises, yeah? So, let's grab some songs. If you had some time, I wanted okay. Doesn't really matter. So we had the piano lesson. Yes, here is the famous song about the fellow. Fellowship of the Church. About the birthday greeting song. Yes, birthday greeting. It will be in C major today. Okay. So it starts from it. Maybe you know it, or maybe not. Birthday. I would like, yes, so it goes on the white keys. Why we take C major? C major is just the same. Like an A minor is a minor that is all in white keys. Something the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, it's all in white. For example, different minors. Yes, all other minors they have already some black keys. Yeah, so it's some white keys change to black. Yeah, they have some black keys already in there. So this is the C minor, for example. Yes, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 3 sides. That yes, the Mi minor, bemol it's called. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the minor. Minor is the scale. I mean the scale. Yes. Something. D minor. Here goes the D minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As you can see, there is only one flat. So this is only one note. This is a fourth flat. E minor has only one flat note, but it is sharp. Yes, so it's F going sharp. If you don't do this sharp, it won't sound minor like like a melody. It will sound like weird. Yeah, and if you make it sharp, it is gold. Yes, this is why. And so all that. F minor have four. For 1, 2, 3, 1. So 4. Dimensions now. Black keys, yes. 1, 2, 3, flat, and this goes like A flat, C flat. No, not C flat. C it's in that. It's notice the letter is B, but the name is C. The Latin name is C. Sometimes people call it T. Because not to be, yes, because this is the C is a Latin, and this is the C as a Latin letter. I mean. And letter as a letter, yes, and this is the C as pronouncing, yes, as a sibyl, yes. So it goes to like sol, la, si, do, and sometimes people know, because this is, if you go like C, C, D, E, yes, C, and this goes B, so G, A, B, C, if you go with letters, and if you go sol, la, si, do. Yes, in like so sometimes people go T, so la T, not to be spoiled with this. So yeah, sorry about this. Yeah, if I made a mistake. Yeah. So it goes like it goes B flat. Yes, this is very complicated. It is very old letter because in Latin it's called yes. Yes, it's dur, it's B flat, and so bemol it's called. This is the first bemol that had importance. Okay, so that is why it is so many these pictures. Okay, yeah, da. So that's what yes. So it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. And very often we have the 7 is sharpened to be closer to the first, to the next first, and it makes the intonation very, very wise in general. Yeah, very wise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if F minor is we had it, there is a 4, and so on. So it goes A flat, C flat. It is not C. It is B flat, D flat, E flat. It goes 4 flats. Yes. Yes, and this goes yes for G minor, for example, it goes 2 flats for this because we have 2 and so on. For A minor we don't have any signs. Just sometimes we have the 7 sharpened, yes, as I said before, yeah. For regular, it's called harmonic, for the harmony, because it's made for the harmony to be, compromised, yeah. And so and so on. You have a black, for example, yes, black for F sharp minor. We have these kinds of minors. This minor. Also we have these minors, yes. We have this minor with very many flats. We have or many sharps, yes, and this minor we have, yes, and this minor, yes. So we have 7 on white keys and 7 on black, 5 on black keys. So 12 sounds and 12 minors, yes. And also same for the majors. But major goes with a different scale type. They go from C, yes. So, as you can see, they called parallel. Parallel means that they have the same but pure instruction. For example, all the white keys goes for the C major, means that there is no, yes. And for the A minor, that's why they are called the parallel in Latin, yes. But as presumably they are called and this is and the same that goes for. So we actually have this 12 majors and 12 minors, yeah, but they are different, of course. So this goes for the C minor. We have 3 flats, and this is top secret. Where is it? Okay, maybe it's too wrong. Yeah. Okay. It's just for fun. That's why, if you know how to do this, it may be very easy, yes. Stepwise. So we go. I wanted just you to understand. Where are you? What is going on? What's happening? Hopefully you heard me a little bit, yes? I just wanted you to understand, to show some respect, because yes, we are not just playing for the white keys. I want you to understand what the heck is happening, yes? This was happening. This is number 1, and then it goes stepwise, okay? And if you want, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? It is like an any major, and we can do it, but you can do it, it will be the different scales, okay? And different moods and different chords and different melodies, yes. Yeah, of course, and we can make some, transplanation, and so on. So but mostly all the melodies are going in the major scale, yeah? So here we go. So if you just respect, you can find, да, найти, не надо тратить просто. So let us continue, да, proceed, наоборот, да. Okay, here it goes. Да. So it goes for the majors, yes? Major, it doesn't mean, I know there is a different meanings of these words, but yes, in music we have very strict answer. What is major, what is minor? Major and minor are types of, you can say scale, but actually it is not even the scale, it is mode. Yes, it is like what is mode? Mode is a connection between mode is a connection between the sounds on the vertical, between on the height. Yeah, that is long. So yeah. And when the mode is connected to some particular sound, it makes the type of the major sound from different than. So hopefully, yeah, maybe you understand this already. Yeah. So yeah. Yes, and I wanted you to respect your the white keys because they are not just the white keys anyway, they are C major scale. Yes, and if you understand, if you catch it, you can find the melodies on it very easily. Yes, here is the trick. So it is the major on the white scale. Okay. Yes, and you can start from 1, 3, and 5. You can 5. They are the basements. So you can finish any melody. You can actually for the beginning of the melody it will be often it starts from the. Ну заткнись уже, ты что это да? Ну да. Well, it doesn't really matter. Okay. The melody finishes on either on 1 or 3 or 5 of the scale degree, yeah. Not the chordals, but the scale degree, yes. And when the chord changes, yeah, you may say that is, but it's not the changes of of the it is just temporary, понимаю. So yes, it is two traditions. One tradition says that tradition orientated on the tonal, interpolation, on the tonal keys. They say that you on the first degree, on the third degree, on the fifth degree, on the sixth degree, on the sixth flattened degree, for example. But there is different traditions that some of them say to you, that if you change the chord, you are now not on the third degree of the scale. You are now on the seventh degree of a new scale. It is model tradition. It is very, it is ancient time tradition. But today in jazz lessons, they are particularly using the same. Yes, because each chord they like a new scale. So you are not in the C major. Yes, you are now, for example, in F very sharpened scale. Yes, with the fourth sharpened. But actually, and now you are in the D. So it is the second now degree of the scale, yes. But it is not the scale because we don't hit the finish of the melody, yes. So when the melody will be finished, we are still in the same, in the same movement. That's why this is the tradition. It is So that's why there is two meanings. And when you are playing, when you are singing, you are not really interested in what chords there are. They are interconnected. Forever. Yes, and you can change the chords too. What kind of scale? It is second flattened of the D, very Ionian scale. And this is the third of the sixth flattened. Or maybe some very so on, yeah. So don't be sophisticated. Yes, basically we're going on 1, 3, 5, yes? Yeah, and this is the basement. If you understand this, you will understand the model of harmony too, because this goes. So it is interchanging now for 5, 2, and or we say 9 sometimes, yes, and it's not. It is 9, yes, 7 and 9, 9, and this goes for the 11, yes. Yeah, beautiful sound. Yeah. Yeah, it is with contemporary, yes. So, you might say that загрузило через наоборот, да, it is quite an quite an interpolar, да. You have change my scale. Example, yes, and you can make improvise. What is the difference between improvisation and so finding your own part. So yes, and by the way, yeah, so this is you already perhaps know this is very sophistication. So it goes like 2, 5, 1, yes, for example, in just music, or just the same, just the same function goes maybe either on 2 or either on 4, because they are almost the same connections, yes. Because here goes the sounds of the second degree, it goes chord, yes, 2, 4, 6, and sound of the fourth degree goes 4, 6 is the same, and 1 is that, and there is more of it because interconnected all of them. So in music it is, yeah, that's important. For fun, having fun, you know. Okay, and there was there was the song, yes. Perhaps maybe you remember this. Tingle bells, tingle bells. Could you remember this? On the right.
You have like the page for it on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm changing to impro. I'm changing here. Okay. You know this song maybe, yeah? It's quite famous, familiar.
I don't know the song.
Yeah? Okay, then we'll check. Very quickly, yes. It seems you already know. Yeah, it is. Поняла. It is. Okay. Let us just try. Maybe it will be possible. Look at this. We're finding the C. Yeah, very quicker. Yes. C major. Finding the C, and we have the white keys of our steps. 1, 2, 3. So here goes the tingle bells. Yeah. And here goes tingle bells, tingle bells. It goes like 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3. Try to that. Yeah, I just. 1, 2, 3. 3, 5, 1, 2, 3. 5, 1, 2, 3. 5, 1, 2. Yeah. Very good. And then goes 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 2. It goes 4, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2. 4, 4, 4. Ну да, с четвертой. 4, 4, 4. and it's finished with a 5. 2, 3, 2, 5. Because just a chord там, да, просто, да. 2, 2, 3, 2, 5, and finish with the 5, okay? And this goes the part of the song, yes. So it's quite, yeah, and you can try this song with the scale as that we studied, and you possibly maybe repeat it, we repeat it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with two-handed, yes, you remember, like this, and two-handed, yes. So just the same, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5, 1, 3, 2, 4, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 5. It goes like this, yes, it is a very complicated major, yes, but just the same melody of major, yeah, and so on. It goes for anyone, yes, and 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, any scale, yes, yes, very good. So yeah, if you remember it steply, yes, it will be. I think it will be easier. Try it on, okay? So it goes like from the middle, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, and just repeat it. Yes, okay, and then go 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 5. Okay, hopefully. Yeah, it will more sharpen your education. So, but very close. Rhythmically, just rhythmically. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2. В конце, in the end, will be 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 5, and we return to the 5, make da 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 ti da yam. Just remember the melody, and you will respect the melody. Okay, very good. And this is the same. Yes, the same goes for any melodies for the any. I wanted you to wanted you to show it just the scales and for the pianists or just for the piano for anyone. Yeah, this kind of works for you to understand. It is called. Don't be surprised. Yeah, it is visual information. It is very good, very good. Almost there, but the ending is on 5. When you continue, the ending is on the 5 because there is continuation. Da 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 da, 3, 2, and 5, and then we go again. Down, down, down. You remember possibly, yeah? No, I'm just almost there. Yeah, 5. Yeah, very good. Nice, nicely. Okay, now I wanted you just to show something. Here goes the scales. For us to easier, because it is visual information, it is just simply I'm kind of confused with that. So it is the scales. It is Do major. It's like C major. In English, some English parlent français they say Do or sometimes Ut majeur. Yeah, it's very ancient. Before the Do syllables, there was the Ut syllables. Because of the hymnus of them, blah blah blah, it doesn't really matter, it's more ancient, but after this, because the domine is do. And so it is C dur, as you can see. Dur means it's just simply in the Latin means just the, it's frequently, okay. C dur, and as you can see, it starts from C and just goes up and down, and there is no signs, okay, no signs, no sharps, no flats. Here goes the sol. do, sol. They're connected in the. It is as you remember G possibly. They are connected by sign. It's called the circles of feet. It doesn't really matter because there is such a tradition. Yes, so we have the very closely the scale degrees. They are stepwise because there is their interpolation are changing on 1 degree, so it goes with the same with 1 sharp. So we have with 1 sharp. So that's why here is 1 sharp. It is F sharp. It ends with G dur. It means the sol major, and goes the D dur, the re major, as we say, or D major or D dur. Yes, la major, as you can see, one. So we have 1 sharp. So if we start from sol major scale, we have F sharp 1. Yes, if we start and go on, yes, and so on. And that's why it goes like this. And when I looking at any scale, I see it is, what is it? 4 flats. 4 flats. What is it? It is actually the But if you're a musician, of course, you already know it. So it is 2 sharps, re major, and that's what it means, and when you play it, you are meant to play, for example, mi bemol S dur, it's E flat major, so it's E, it is E flat, and we are playing from the E flat, we are playing the major scale from E flat, just the same major sound, but it is meant, there is no signs, it's just written that. It is meant to be 3 flats that you just remember it with your palms and fingers, with your palms. So it's just like an economy of the space. So if you would write all this, okay, forget it. Very good. Yes. Dasha, okay, very good. So the ending is 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 5. I just wanted you to realize how some respect, but actually, in particular, you can say that it's all the scales are based on C major, actually, that are moved on the different height, or different pitch, So you actually do this like this, even if you're playing on the guitar or some string instrument, if all the strings are closed, you're just moving your position. And so it's easier, even so you don't have to realize понимаю, So this is the construct, and it is made with do. It is much easier, but anyway, for interconnections you have to practice your ear and so on, and your heart and so on, and find some mellow soundings, and traditional interesting connections, between the sounds, and some dramatic, dramatic connections between, and know some tricks about the scales, about how they go for the blues scales and for different things. So that's how it goes, That's why I'm training you. So what was it? And here we go. So don't be surprised, because I'm eager. There is some, and this is there is ear training called solfege in English, from Italian word solfeggio, or from the beginning it goes from the sol and fa, and as you can understand, like a sol and fa, it goes like, so you're pronouncing the name of it's just the meaning, meaning of the word. It's meaning that you are singing the notes, just of the names. Sol, do, sol, do, si, do, re, sol, mi, re, mi. changing different, making different colors, and so it's just for actually so it's just interpolation. Forget it. So the basic you have to understand. Our ear is trained already. It it's trained already. It can understand meaning the major sound, the color of major for different, yes, you can like a mood, yes, you can understand it. Yeah. More close. So that's why it is interpolation. That's why. That's why I show some respect and sing along with your song, yeah, with the names. And if you are understanding, you are training your ear, yes, because all the scales have names and all the, yes, so and it have the mood, you know. So yes. The greatest singers even said that the soul inside every interval or something, but I'm not so important, I think. But for example, here goes the do. It is the first step, first, and goes second, third, second. Second is very close to it actually it wants to go. If in traditional classics, in jazz, in modern ear, you may allow to it, yes? It will sound like a complete chord, maybe, yes? But in classical music, you want to resolve it, yes? In classical ear type. But today everything is mixed, it depends on style of your maybe in blues you may even make the major and minor beyond. Yeah, so it depends on the style, yeah. Yeah, and the modern classics is very important, yeah. So, but anyway, your ear understands that it is the second degree, it gets its place in song that goes to one, for example, and we are home. In traditional choral music like this, yeah, it goes like 2 to 3. 3 is very good interval, yes. 3, 2, 3, or maybe 2 to 1, home returning, or maybe 4 goes to 3, 4 to 3, or sometimes 4 to 5, 4 sharp to 5. Even that, yeah. So it's like intonation, in the intonation. It is very moody. So it makes beauty. It makes you feel inside, yeah? Like in dancing, yes, you feel it inside, yes. 6, 6, flat and minor 6, goes to 5, 6, 1, movie like that. Space Warriors. 4 sharp and Jewish I'm a quarter on Jewish song. Okay. Yes, just waiting. So that's why I wanted you to play this, to respect some, you know. I either don't like the music, okay, so it is, yes, I show you respect some, yeah, I gotta play, gotta go, so hopefully I understand that you are going to play alone. Yeah. Yes, you gotta go, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. So we shall continue presumably, yeah? If you wish, for the next time, you may find okay. You may train. Okay. Okay. You can train your, ear or yes, with the voice leading, yes. repeat some songs that we are trained already, and yes, and your book too. Yes, your book too. Take it. Yes, and we shall proceed, continue. Okay. I'm sorry, because I'm I'm so fetch, musician. Okay. Yeah. I just felt that it's some maybe. Okay. Later, maybe make it later. Okay. Later. Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. See you then. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Welcome. осознанно. Вот видишь, система, да. Ну нет, что ты, ну вот наоборот тогда, да. Ну и что? Это же самое же получилось, да. Нет, не надо. Да, вот она. Вот это она имела в виду. Ну нет. Вообще просто позорно, что я понял. если она не музыкант. Ну, пока что, ну да, вообще как сказать, да. Чем, смотря, будешь определять, понимаешь? Курт Кобейн тоже не музыкант. По идее. Да. Ну, я понял, ну, скажем, ну, Егор, это человек, музыкант, что ли? Ну, про себя так говорит, просто, да, это не к тому, просто, да, то есть, профессионально, это самое, да. Да. Ну, да, нет, это не музыкант, просто. Да. Да, это было общение с публикой, я понимаю. Музыкально. Ничего, стараюсь, но чуть конечно. Ну, так вообще так, да. Ну, видишь, тоже надо. Да, никому не надо. Такой умнички, знаешь. Таких полно снобов, я знаю, я к себе же. Наоборот, понимаю, я играю нормально, но я не понимаю, что играю даже. Ну, да, нет, я могу понимать. Ну, ладно. Это все объем работы, как я тебе как мужик говорю, просто видишь, как бы я начал как бы, вот ты начинаешь жить с 0 лет, а я начал жить где-то с 21 года. Понимаешь, чувствуешь разницу? Да. Или с 23, вообще или с 32, да. Ну да. Ну да. Наживать начал. Да. Ну это была подготовка к материальному расположению. Ну вот это именно самое. Ну, смотри, даже. Нет, было. Вот, пусть этим заниматься. Вроде сочиняет. Нет? Нет? Да. Это одно и то же, в принципе, тот же самый. Я боюсь ограниченности, понимаешь? Наверное, сам потому что ограниченный, да. И вот, да, это жаль на меня. Да. Нет, ее надо, да, понимаю. Вся. Ну да. Вот это тоже сказал свою историю. Потому что время идет, а ты делаешь одно и то же. Топчешься на практике, да. Лучше мужской. Да. Что нам уже не знаю, что надо. Да. Научить себя им надо, да? что-то захотеть, может быть, что-то полюбить, возможно, да? Не знаю, да, то есть, да. Знакомиться, да, понимаете. Просто покайфовать, провести время. Тоже наверное. Потому что, ну да. Ну ладно. Ну, нормально, в хорошем смысле слова. Если да, понимаю. Ну да. Никто не будет рисовать картины, просто потому что их заставляют там, понимаешь? Потому что люди, да, понимаете, технологии осваивают тоже из любви, понимаете, да. Потому что, да. Может быть даже так, да. Может и это тоже ваше, да. Я второй раз слышал эту фразу, да. Пам-пам-пам-пам-пам-пам. Вот это моя старая запись. Ладно. Да. Ну, наверное. Ну, да.
Hey guys, my name is Matt Johnson with whoismatt.com, and it is 2021. Winter is upon us, which means that today I'm happy to show you the parts you need to build a budget 4K video editing computer for around $750. This is going to easily enable you to edit 4K and HD video in Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, as well as edit photos, stream on Twitch, and even game if you want to. And it should be powerful for many years to come. Now, there are a few things you need to know before we start talking about the parts for this video editing build. First, all of the parts of this build will be linked down in the video description, as well as a link to my kit page, where they will all be nicely organized for you to check out. Second, this video is just going to show you the parts that you need to purchase, not how to put them together. Don't worry though, I have a video I made a while ago that's over an hour long that details the entire step-by-step process you need to take to build a video editing PC, from taking the parts out of the box to turning on the computer. That video is linked down in the description as well, and all of the parts in this video should go together in the same way that the parts in that video did. Please do not be intimidated. Building a PC is a lot of fun and kind of like putting together Legos. The third thing you need to know before we talk about parts is that in this video I've also included upgrade options for some of the parts. So if you have some extra room in your budget, I have detailed some upgraded versions of these parts that you can buy for a bit more money that can result in a faster video editing speed. The fourth and final thing you need to know is that while this video is about building a budget video editing computer for $750, I have 2 other videos that will show you the parts you need to buy to build a mid-tier or high-tier video editing computer that will easily edit 4K, 6K, 8K, 12K footage. So if you have more money to spend, I would recommend watching those videos. I'll link them up in the corner and down in the video description as well. Now on to this $750 budget video editing computer build. Up first, let's talk about the motherboard. This is going to be what you put all of your parts, like the CPU, RAM, and graphics card onto, and it makes them all work together. I recommend the MSI B450A Pro Max motherboard. With this motherboard, you're getting a good mix of features for a good price, and you're also getting a motherboard that should...
Столько всего проблем, у этих проблем, ученики, шмученики, работы, шмыботы, дела, еще какая-нибудь родня, еще что-нибудь, еще все, блин, все сгрудилось, все за нее. Блин, а что надо-то, блин, понимаешь? А что надо, да, что ты уберешь из твоей жизни и все посыпется? Вообще все. Ну, жену, грубо говоря, можно заменить, любовника, тоже любовника, да, понимаешь, да. Наверное, да, что-то, да. Все, в смысле, вообще все. То есть бомжара без карьеры, вообще без всего. То есть ты вообще без тех, ну, типа того. А, ты о чем говоришь? Да. Зарплату. Смотри, я у тебя уберу зарплату, что будешь делать? Что еще можно? Не тот вариант. Да, сам понимаешь. Что не надо, я понял. Ну, наверное, да. Я за фортепиано, вот и все. А потом премьеры, да, а потом, собственно, там все вместе, как бы, да. И ничего, она говорит, ну, вот тоже так вот, да. Ну, не потом, значит, так вот вместе, что-то. Непонятно, это не суть даже разговора. Музыка и все, что, а как музыка, какая музыка? Не умеешь играть, умеешь сочинять. Умеешь сочинять, умеешь играть. Как это, да, понимаешь? Кому-то хорошо, умеешь сочинять, не умеешь продавать. То есть умеешь сочинять, а она нахер никому не надо. То есть надо понимать. То есть надо понимать. Никто не надо. Ну да. Не донес до людей, значит, да. Ладно, ничего. Тоже это объем работы. Я тебе вот как мужик говорю, это все объем работы всего лишь, да? Понимаешь? Это уже придерживаюсь, смотри. Потому что что, планки жалко, как тебе да, говорят, я тебя понял, да? Ну да, типа того. Где все сходится так, тысяч, все вот сошлось там, да, понимаешь. Ну, нет, смотри, жениться не на что, понимаешь? Понимает у тебя просто что. Видеоролики пришли, ушли, отработали, как говорится, да.
to work with future AMD CPUs, so you can save some money and not have to upgrade your motherboard if you decide to upgrade your CPU in the future. Next up, let's talk about the CPU, the brain of the computer, which is arguably the most important part when it comes to video editing, because a fast CPU with a lot of cores is going to make a drastic difference in how fast your videos edit and render.
Press move. Закажи. Получи. AliExpress.
Ваш заказ.
Is going to make an important part when it comes to video editing, because a fast CPU with a lot of cores is going to make a drastic difference in how fast your videos edit and render. I'm going to recommend you purchase the Ryzen 5 3600 CPU, which is a fantastic budget option with 6 cores and 12 threads of performance. And at a price of $200 with 6 cores and 12 threads of performance. And at a price of $200 at the time of recording this video, this is a great CPU that has a nice price too. That said, if you have more money to spend though, AMD's Ryzen 7 3700X CPU will give you 2 more cores and a nice jump in performance for around $120 more. Moving on, let's talk about RAM, aka memory. This is what your computer needs to run its programs. For RAM, I would recommend 16 gigabytes of Corsair LPX DDR4 RAM at 32. Recommend 16 gigabytes of Corsair LPX DDR4 RAM at 3200 megahertz. This is going to be enough RAM for 4K video editing, but it is not quite enough for multitasking. So I wouldn't recommend running too many other programs in addition to your video editing software if you can help it. Now, as a RAM upgrade, I've found the sweet spot for editing software tasking. So I wouldn't recommend running too many other programs in addition to your video editing software if you can help it. Now, as a RAM upgrade, I've found the sweet spot for 4K video editing is 32 gigabytes of RAM. Specifically for this build, I would recommend purchasing 32 gigabytes of Corsair LPX DDR4 RAM at 3200 megahertz. I've used this amount of RAM for many years in my desktop and laptop, and it has worked great. Up next, you have the computer's SSD. This is the fast hard drive that's going to store all of your programs while editing video. Prices have also been dropping every year on these, and it is shockingly affordable to get an SSD now. For a super fast budget option, I would recommend the Kingston A400 SSD, which will give you 240 gigabytes of space and retails for only $34. This should be plenty of space for you to store your computer's operating system and program files. If you want more space, I would recommend the 500 gigabyte Samsung 970 EVO for $65. There's even a 1 terabyte model for $140 if you want a lot more space. Please do keep in mind that I only recommend using the SSD to store your programs. For the fastest video editing speed, it's best to have a smaller SSD that holds your programs and a larger SSD or regular hard drive to store your video files. If you're someone that travels a lot like me, I would recommend purchasing an external hard drive or SSD to edit your video files from. Alternatively, this computer's case will support internal hard drives and SSDs, so you could go that route too. I'll be sure to link to hard drives and SSDs that I recommend this from. Alternatively, this computer's case will support internal hard drives and SSDs, so you could go that route too. I'll be sure to link to hard drives and SSDs that I recommend, both internal and external, down in the video description. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite part of any computer, the graphics card. And this is where this build video is going to be different from previous PC build videos that I've made in the past. See, there have been a ton of awesome graphics cards released recently, but there are also major issues in the supply chain, and many companies are having difficulty keeping graphics cards in stock. It really is a perfect storm of a shortage of workers building these cards due to the pandemic, everyone staying home and wanting to play computer games, which is also due to the pandemic, cryptocurrency mining, which is always an issue, and also, unfortunately, there are scalpers out there that are using bots to buy up most of the graphics card supplies as soon as they're in stock, and then turning around and selling them on eBay at a massive price markup, usually double or more the MSRP. Because of all of these issues, it's quite difficult to buy a graphics card these days for a reasonable price, which makes buying a video editing computer on a budget even more difficult. Don't worry though, I'm here to help you save money. So here's what I'm going to do in this video. In the past, I've recommended one particular brand and model of graphics card because cards would usually stay in stock. But now, instead of just one brand and model, I'm going to recommend you several brands and models of card. So, when you're buying a graphics card, you have the maximum chance of being able to find one in stock for a reasonable price. So, here are my budget graphics card recommendations. First, let's talk about brands. When you're looking for a graphics card, you're going to see a lot of brands like Asus, MSI, eVGA, Gigabyte, Zotac, PNY, there are a ton. In my experience for video editing, it doesn't make a huge difference which brand you buy from, and with this shortage, we're more concerned with actually finding a graphics card in stock for a reasonable price. So if you find a card from any of the above brands, I'd say you're probably good to go, as long as the card doesn't have a ton of horrible reviews online. So, if all those manufacturers are usually good, which specific model of graphics card should you buy? I'll start by recommending the NVIDIA GTX 1050 Ti, which is one of the cheapest cards available today that's capable of 4K video editing. Surprisingly, for the most part, I've been able to find this card in stock at under $200. The only con of this card is that it only has 4 gigabytes of video memory. So while yes, it will work for 4K video editing, if you have the budget and can find one of the other card options with more video RAM that I'm about to tell you about, you'll want to go with one of those. Now, here are more cards that I would recommend that should offer better performance and should still be relatively affordable if you can find them in stock. For other NVIDIA cards, I would recommend the NVIDIA GTX 1660 Super and RTX 3060 Ti. These cards are hard to find in stock, especially the RTX 3060, but if you can get one at retail price, it should be for around $400 or less. Now, for AMD cards, I would recommend the Radeon RX 570, RX 580, 5500 XT, and 5600 XT. If you get one of these, you should be good for 4K video editing, but make sure you get the model with 8 gigabytes of video RAM. They also have 4 gigabyte video RAM models, but they're not quite as good. I'll link below to all of these cards that I just talked about that are in stock, but I can't guarantee they'll stay in stock because these things change literally from hour to hour. Because stock can be so hard to keep up with, I would recommend setting up stock alerts at Amazon, Newegg, and B&H so you can be notified as soon as they come back in stock. In addition, if you live close to a Micro Center or Best Buy and can go in person to the store, there's a much better chance that you may be able to find one in stock at a physical location. Last thing about graphics cards. If you find a store that has them in stock, please come back to this video and leave a comment telling others so they can filter by new comments and hopefully buy one too. Graphics cards over, we're almost done. Let's talk about the power supply for this build, which you're going to need to give your parts all of the electrical juice that they crave. I would recommend this eVGENIY 500 watt power supply, which is a great price and quite energy efficient. Please keep in mind this is not a modular power supply, meaning that all the cables are permanently attached to the back of the power supply. This can make cable management a bit more difficult, but it does keep the cost down. If you have some extra money though and want easier cable management, I would recommend the eVGENIY BQ 500 watt power supply, which is semi-modular and should result in a cleaner looking build for not too much more money. Lastly, you need something to put all these parts inside, a case. One of my favorite cases is the NZXT H510, which is pretty pretty, but still looks professional. There's no RGB or crazy colors, it's just a well-built case that will look good on or under a desk. The roughly $70 price tag isn't bad either. Now, I do want you to be aware that the H510 case does not have any 5.25-inch bays, meaning that you're not going to be able to install a CD, DVD, or Blu-ray burner inside this case. The good news is that you can pick up an external DVD burner for around 25 bucks and an external Blu-ray burner for less than 100. If you really want a case with a 5.25-inch drive so you can install an internal DVD or Blu-ray burner, I would recommend the Cougar MX330G. This case isn't quite as pretty as the NZXT H510, but it has great airflow and thousands of people love it. And that is your $750 video editing PC build. As always though, there is more that you're going to need. Mouse, keyboard, monitor, speakers, operating system. For all of those physical accessories, there are so many options out there that are going to depend entirely on what you prefer. I will link down in the description to my recommendation for keyboards, mice, speakers, and both a 1080p and 4K monitor depending on what you want. I would personally recommend the 4K option. As far as the operating system goes, I would recommend Windows 10. And I've included a link down in the description to a Tom's Hardware article where you can read about how to get a copy of Windows 10 for free or for very cheap. With that, thank you so much for watching. It would be a huge help to me if you would consider liking this video and subscribing if you want to see more PC build guide videos in the future. Please keep in mind, these parts are all linked below and the prices are subject to change and the parts can go out of stock sometimes very quickly. If anything looks too expensive or goes out of stock, please let me know and I will update the part link with a new option that is in stock. Please also keep in mind that I have these other PC build guide videos detailing more powerful video editing options that you can build as well if you have a higher budget. Those are linked in the corner and down in the video description.
What's up creators, Anthony here, and in this video we're going to be talking about computers. What's the best computer for editing? Should I buy a Mac or a PC? What if I need to edit in 4K? How much RAM should I have? What the heck is RAM? What about your processor? How many cores should I have? The list goes on and on. The computer question is something we're being asked all the time. From people just getting started to film school veterans, investing in a computer is a huge decision for you and your business. So how do we make sure we're smart about that investment? Well, in today's video, my goal is to answer all of the questions you have about computers so you can get out there and buy with confidence. On top of that, I'm going to try and make things as simple as possible. So even if you aren't a tech nerd like I am, this will still make perfect sense to you. But before we do that, I have two housekeeping things to cover. The first thing we need to talk about is why should I care about my computer? Now, maybe this is obvious to you, but I want to stress this. When we talk about camera gear, you'll commonly hear your camera is only as good as your lens allows it to be, meaning that even if you own a $50,000 camera, but you slap a soft, old lens on that, it's going to look just as bad as a $500 camera with the same lens on it. This same exact principle applies to computers, or kind of, at least. Your computer can easily become the bottleneck in your setup. Let's say you film on a camera that shoots 1080p right now, and you buy a computer that edits 1080p footage like a champ. But eventually, you upgrade to a camera that has 4K. Well, now your computer may be too slow to do that, and now this amazing 4K footage becomes useless because the editing machine you use just can't handle it. So you have to either sit through terribly laggy footage or create proxies, which in itself can take forever and be a huge pain. Or say you want to start getting into animation or motion graphics or visual effects. Again, your computer might limit you in your ability to accomplish that. Sure, it'll be laggy and you can fight through the pain and get it done, but what about the opportunity cost you lose with all of that time wasted as you sit and watch as it just renders so slowly? So the answer here is to try and future-proof your setup by getting great lenses for your camera to grow into and a powerful computer that will remain perfectly valid as you upgrade from camera to camera. So now that we've covered that, let's dive into housekeeping item number 2, which is a debate that spans back to the time of cavemen and cave women.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
I'm a PC.
Oh, hey, iPod, nice.
Yeah, it's just a little something to hold my slow jams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it works so seamlessly with iTunes.
You should check out iMovie, iPhoto, iWeb because they all work like iTunes. You know, iLife comes on every Mac.
iLife. Well, I have some very cool apps that are bundled with me.
Well, like, what do you got?
Calculator,
That's cool. Anything else?
clock.
Sounds like
Yeah.
hours of fun.
Yeah.
Or at least minutes.
Which is better, Mac or PC? You've probably heard this question asked about 10 times in the past 7 days alone. My goal right now is to explain this in a way so that people don't need to ask this question. So let me answer this once and for all. Which is better? Neither. Probably not what you wanted to hear, but unlike what some crazy brand loyal fans will tell you, it's the truth. Both types of computers are just tools. Tools that we adapt to and learn to manipulate in the most efficient and powerful way possible. These tools are also individually better or worse at specific things, but in the end, in my opinion, the pros and cons cancel themselves out to the point where neither type is overall better or worse than the other. I personally edit on an iMac Pro that costs about $5,400, and I also have a fully upgraded MacBook Pro coming in at $4,500. With that much money invested in Apple, you probably think I would be pretty biased in their favor, right? Wrong. Although I love Macs, I also see PCs as an extremely capable adversary to Macs. I personally own Macs for one major reason. It's what I'm used to. I grew up with Macs and I'm in love with their user interface. I love a lot of small things about Macs, like AirDrop, having iMessage right on my computer, and there's a certain synchronicity you get with Apple when everything you own between your watch, your phone, your headphones, your...
А через уже будет. Он решил пожать, а пошли в что-то. 3 раза в день. Ладно, ладно. Хорошо, смотри. Ты когда вот за день, да, какой ты будешь брать деньги? Ну да. Так мне не нужны эти, что, бабы, конечно, деньги заработают. К сожалению, смотри, к сожалению, я тоже так считаю. Хорошо, женщина привыкнет музыку и все. Он сам будет жить. Ладно, ладно. Бесхарактерная, потому что, да. Да, вопрос, ну ладно. Вот надо. Вот такая. Самый хороший вариант, да. Нет. Что-то реально как-то сильно учится. Меня голодал прям вообще просто. Как будто вообще, как будто вообще век не ел, как будто, да. Не знаю. Да. Я про это и говорю тебе, да.
Computer, your laptop, all owned by Apple, it speeds things up a big degree in my eyes. Now, speed plays a huge role in how I run my business, and the time I would have to spend adapting my entire environment to the PC system would just not be worth it to me. Now, I want to quickly go over this quote I heard from someone in our private Facebook community, and it went like this. Computers are like cars. Some people buy cars to work for them, other people buy cars to work on them. Now, I think this is perfect because I've seen it happen in my lifetime so many times. Almost everyone I know who owns a PC loves them because they can work on them. They can upgrade the RAM over time, the storage, the display, the motherboard, the video card, the fans, you name it, you can probably customize it when it comes to PCs. On the other hand, something I really love about Macs, being a guy who doesn't really care to build computers, I just buy it and the thing works. And it'll work for years and I can always trust its stability. Another thing to consider, with Apple products, you are absolutely paying a premium for what you're getting. Most of the time, whatever specs you get when you buy a Mac, for the same price, you could probably build a PC that is going to look better on paper. Now, my counter argument to this as a Mac user is that there's a certain something to be said for a computer that is built the same exact way, time and time across hundreds and thousands of different users. Argument to this as a Mac user is that there's a certain something to be said for a computer that is built the same exact way, time and time across hundreds and thousands of different users. This level of harmony between all of the parts within Macs, in my eyes, helps to give us a whole is greater than the sum of its parts situation. But once I grow out of that computer, I need to buy a new one compared to the PC owner who can just upgrade their existing machine. So hopefully that answers the question of which is better. But to give you actual advice, if you're just beginning and you have no special tie to one interface or the other, and your budget is slim, stick with PC. If you have enough money to buy a Mac, then my recommendation would be to do that, so long as you still have enough money left over to get the gear that you actually need as well. We talk about cameras and lenses and audio gear and so on. On the other hand, if you've spent years on one type of machine, stick to that because the time you'll have to waste learning an entirely new interface just isn't worth it. You could learn so many other things that are going to benefit you in a much greater fashion. Okay, now that we've covered that massive elephant in the room, if you don't mind me asking you really quickly if you could just smash that like button and subscribe, that would also be huge. It really helps us out as a channel. But moving on, we can actually start talking about computers and what you should look for from specs to hardware and everything in between. I'm going to keep it simple and break things down into just 5 major categories that you need to consider. First up, we have what is probably the most straightforward, and this is storage. Storage is exactly what it sounds like. How much space do you have on your computer's drive for storing things like pictures, documents, video files, projects, and so on? Now, we've talked about storage several times here, but to keep it simple, there are really 2 keys to storage I want to cover. The first is that you shouldn't stress too much over how much storage you actually have. The reality with video is you will almost always run out of however much storage you have built into your computer. You can easily buy external hard drives to store all of your footage on, or invest in a cloud-based solution as well for backing up old footage. The second key is that not all storage was created equally. We have HDDs, which stands for hard disk drives. We have SSDs, which stands for solid-state drives, and Apple has this weird thing they try to sell called the Fusion drive, which is basically a hybrid between an HDD and an SSD. So HDDs, hard disk drives, are what you're probably familiar with. They've been around for longer and consist of an actual disk that spins around in your computer. HDDs are great in that they're inexpensive. You can get 4 terabytes, which is 4,000 gigabytes, for just $100. The flip side, they're not just 4,000. HDDs are great in that they're inexpensive. You can get 4 terabytes, which is 4,000 gigabytes, for just $100. The flip side, they're not very fast for editing. Your footage lives on this drive, and since it's a slower drive, when your editing software pulls on this drive to reference the footage, it takes longer, which slows down your editing experience. On top of that, since the drive is literally a spinning disk, aka a moving part, the odds of that failing over time are much, much higher than something that is solid or not moving. Enter SSDs, solid state drives. These are extremely fast and much more stable considering there are no moving parts. The trade-off is they're much more expensive. Instead of paying just $100 for 4 terabytes, you pay $845, so 8 times the price. That's a huge bummer, but you really should have SSD storage for editing purposes. Once you're done editing a specific batch of footage, you can offload that footage onto a backup drive that is an inexpensive HDD. That way you keep your SSD storage open for only footage that is actively being edited. The issue with this though is that you've now transferred your footage from an exceptionally stable drive to a drive that is much more unstable and likely to fail over time. The key here would be to have multiple backup HDD drives in case one fails. So long story short, when you're looking for a computer, try to have a minimum of 256 to 500 gigabytes of solid state storage on your device. This could be storage that is built into your computer. As with anything, the more the merrier. From there, you can load up on HDDs to use as backups. Now, up after storage, at number 2 on our list, we need to consider RAM, also known as memory. Kind of confusing, right? Because storage and memory sound like the same exact thing. The reality is they're pretty different. I like to think of RAM as the multitasking muscle of your computer. The more you have, the more your computer is capable of handling all at once. Let's say you're editing in Premiere Pro, but you want to add graphics, so you open up After Effects, but all of a sudden things slow down like crazy. Well, that's in part due to the fact that you don't have enough RAM. Now, RAM, like storage, is also measured in gigabytes. The more gigabytes, the more multitasking power you have. Video editing is a heavy task to place on a computer, so minimally we want 16 gigabytes of RAM. That should be more than enough to edit 1080p footage. It's also right on the edge of being able to edit 4K footage. It'll definitely lag, but you could probably get through it depending on how fast the rest of your computer is. Up after 16 gigabytes, we have 32 gigabytes, which is what I would recommend. That should allow you to pretty cleanly edit 4K footage and run multiple applications commit is. Up after 16 gigabytes, we have 32 gigabytes, which is what I would recommend. That should allow you to pretty cleanly edit 4K footage and run multiple applications all at once. Then finally, 64 gigabytes and up, you're looking pretty good. One thing to note with RAM is that, like storage, not all RAM was created equal. There are different speeds that RAM can have. This speed is measured in megahertz, but through most of my research, the differences in performance caused by RAM speed isn't anywhere near as significant as the differences you would find jumping.
Надо расширять, просто расширять. Ну, исполнитель, то есть меня, да. Исполнитель, музыкант, ну, то есть, как бы, все что-то. Наоборот, нет, самопродаваемость, наверное, так, понимаешь? Ну, ладно, ладно. Ну, а что ты хочешь-то? Ну, да, понимаю. Ну, хорошо, ну, скажешь по себе просто. Тебе так говорит просто, да. Ну, да. Не знаю пока. Ну, знаю, но как бы там. Как говорит он просто.
Up the amount that you actually have in your computer. Okay, up next at category number 3, we have your computer's central processing unit, commonly referred to as the CPU. This is like your computer's brain, and when you combine this with your RAM, that's really how you determine the speed of your computer. Now, CPU has 3 things we really need to talk about. The first is the total number of cores. So back in the day, CPUs were just 1 core, and then they came out with dual core processors, and then we had quad core processors, and now there are 20 core processors in each processing unit, commonly referred to as the CPU. This is like your computer's brain, and when you combine this with your RAM, that's really how you determine the speed of your computer. Now, CPU has 3 things we really need to talk about. The first is the total number of cores. So back in the day, CPUs were just 1 core, and then they came out with dual core processors, and then we had quad core processors, and now there are 20 core processors and even beyond that. To put it all into reference though, my iMac is a 12 core and my MacBook Pro is an 8 core. I would say we minimally want 4 cores in any device we're editing on. Again, the more the merrier. So we have a total number of cores, but the device we're editing on. Again, the more the merrier. So we have a total number of cores, but then we also have our core clock speed, which is basically indicating how fast each individual core in your CPU is. As you add more cores, their individual clock speeds will typically go down. As you can see here, as we customize the iMac Pro and increase the number of cores from 8 core to 14 cores, the clock speed goes from 3.2 to 2.5 gigahertz. It's still a faster processor though, as the total number of cores to 2.4 cores from 8 core to 14 cores, the clock speed goes from 3.2 to 2.5 gigahertz. It's still a faster processor though, as the total number of cores increase significantly. One thing I want to mention about this is that certain editing softwares utilize the cores differently. For instance, last I checked, Premiere Pro utilizes all of your cores at once, whereas After Effects optimizes for one individual core's clock speed. Kind of annoying if you think about it, because now we have two programs that work in an inverse fashion of each other when it comes to utilizing your CPU. Have two checked, Premiere Pro utilizes all of your cores at once, whereas After Effects optimizes for one individual core's clock speed. Kind of annoying if you think about it, because now we have two programs that work in an inverse fashion of each other when it comes to utilizing your CPU. But the major takeaway is you should check with the editing software you spend most of your time in and see what it optimizes for. Now, the third thing we need to consider with CPU is the actual processor itself. The two main manufacturers in the world are AMD and Intel. Long story short, AMD is getting much better, but Intel is still the king. Within the range of Intel, you'll see a variety of different options, notably the i5, the i7, and the i9. These represent newer generations of each processor. All of them are good, but the i7 and the i9 are significantly faster, with the i9 being extremely powerful. That's what I have in both of these computers. Okay, up after CPU at number 4, we need to consider the graphics processing unit, also known as the GPU. Along with the name GPU and graphics processor unit, it's also called the graphics card and the video card. Now, to compare this to the CPU, which focuses primarily on the complex mathematical calculations needed to run your computer as a whole, the GPU complex the video card. GPU and graphics processing unit, also known as the GPU. Along with the name GPU and graphics processor unit, it's also called the graphics card and the video card. Now, to compare this to the CPU, which focuses primarily on the complex mathematical calculations needed to run your computer as a whole, the GPU focuses on the geometrical tasks surrounding the processing of 2D and 3D graphics. Being video editors, this is pretty important. Now again, this depends a lot on the program you're working with and whether or not it offloads a lot of its tasks to GPU instead of the CPU. In a perfect world, your computer would give as much as it possibly could to the CPU and then offload any specific task to the GPU so that both were working in parallel together. That would be extremely fast. The reality though is some programs don't utilize the GPU as much as they probably should. Now when it comes to what type of GPU you should have for your computer, like CPU, there are really two manufacturers that we need to talk about. The first is AMD and the second is NVIDIA. As far as quality and performance is concerned, NVIDIA is the king. It's much faster than AMD. As far as quality and talk about, the first is AMD and the second is NVIDIA. As far as quality and performance is concerned, NVIDIA is the king. It's much faster than AMD. Both of these computers though have AMD GPUs, so don't think you need NVIDIA. It is significantly more expensive. Now GPUs also have a memory associated with them like RAM does, measured in expensive. Now AMD GPUs, so don't think you need NVIDIA. It is significantly more expensive. Now GPUs also have a memory associated with them like RAM does, measured in gigabytes. When it comes to that number, I would recommend a base level of 2 gigabytes. And be careful here because sometimes graphics cards will measure their memory in the form of megabytes, not gigabytes. So if you see something along the lines of 1600 MB, that's letting you know it has 1.6 gigabytes of RAM associated with that graphics card. Now finally, coming in at number 5, we have to talk about the motherboard. Now this is something a lot of people don't actually talk about. What the motherboard really is basically the glue that holds everything we've talked about together. Your motherboard ensures that everything in your system works together seamlessly. It also determines what types of ports your computer has and the ability to upgrade your computer over time. Does it have an area for expandable RAM and other things like that? The reason this aspect isn't talked about as much is because with Macs, the decision making is already done. The Apple motherboard, or logic board as they call it, is just part of the computer. You choose your motherboard when you choose the type of Mac that you want. So as far as that's concerned, there's not much room for customization. So for you PC builders out there, make sure you do the research on what type of motherboard suits your needs best. I personally, being a Mac user, I'm not an expert in motherboards because I just have the logic boards that I'm currently stuck with. But aside from that, that really does it for what you need to consider when you're looking for a computer. To summarize really quick, my minimum recommendations for computer specs would be the following. 256 gigabytes of solid-state storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a 4-core CPU with an i5 processor, a GPU with at least 2 gigabytes of RAM, and a motherboard that aligns with what you want out of your computer. And again, that's the minimum recommendation. Now, if you do have more money to spend and you were looking at which areas to upgrade more, I would say focus on the RAM and the CPU. Aim for 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 4 to 8 core CPU with an i7 or an i9 processor. So hopefully this information helps you in your computer purchasing journey. If you feel discouraged because you don't have enough money to buy the computer you want just yet, go out and land paid jobs with whatever gear you currently own. Never let gear hold you back from starting your filmmaking journey, especially considering that the fastest way to upgrade your gear is to get out and shoot, get paid for that, and then upgrade your gear with that money. So the goal of this video was to provide clarity to you, not just on what computer to buy, but how to actually analyze computers and make smart buying decisions. If you want to learn this same process, but for camera gear, lights, audio gear, gimbals, and so on, we've built out the world's most affordable program that covers all things filmmaking. It's called 14-Day Filmmaker, and it contains over 100 different video trainings which outline every single aspect of the filmmaking process, giving you the ability to turn your passion into a full-time career. The amount of money you'll be able to save maximizing your budget through what we really is basically the glue that holds everything we've talked about together. What the motherboard really is basically the glue that holds everything we've talked about together. Your motherboard ensures that everything in your system works together seamlessly. It also determines what types of ports your computer has and the ability to upgrade your computer over time. Does it have an area for expandable RAM and other things like that? The reason this aspect isn't talked about as much is because with Macs, the decision making is already done. The Apple motherboard, or logic board as they call it, is just part of the computer. You choose your motherboard when you choose the type of Mac that you want. So as far as that's concerned, there's not much room for customization. So for you PC builders out there, make sure you do the research on what type of motherboard suits your needs best. I personally, being a Mac user, I'm not an expert in motherboards because I just have the logic boards that I'm currently stuck with. But aside from that, that really does it for what you need to consider when you're looking for a computer. To summarize really quick, my minimum recommendations for computer specs would be the following. 256 gigabytes of solid-state storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a 4-core CPU with an i5 processor, a GPU with at least 2 gigabytes of RAM, and a motherboard that aligns with what you want out of your computer. And again, that's the minimum recommendation. Now, if you do have more money to spend and you were looking at which areas to upgrade more, I would say focus on the RAM and the CPU. Aim for 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 4 to 8 core CPU with an i7 or an i9 processor. So hopefully this information helps you in your computer purchasing journey. If you feel discouraged because you don't have enough money to buy the computer you want just yet, go out and land paid jobs with whatever gear you currently own. Never let gear hold you back from starting your filmmaking journey, especially considering that the fastest way to upgrade your gear is to get out and shoot, get paid for that, and then upgrade your gear with that money. So the goal of this video was to provide clarity to you, not just on what computer to buy, but how to actually analyze computers and make smart buying decisions. If you want to learn this same process, but for camera gear, lights, audio gear, gimbals, and so on, we've built out the world's most affordable program that covers all things filmmaking. It's called 14-Day Filmmaker, and it contains over 100 different video trainings which outline every single aspect of the filmmaking process, giving you the ability to turn your passion into a full-time career. The amount of money you'll be able to save maximizing your budget through what we recommend in the program will vastly outweigh the price we charge. Speaking of which, anybody who enrolls gets 60% off the entire Adobe Creative Cloud. So applications like Premiere Pro, After Effects, Lightroom, Photoshop, and so on, all 60% off. That alone will pay for the course in just 2 months. We currently have over 5,000 people in the 14-Day Filmmaker program, and they love the content that we're giving them. They've upped the game when it comes to their filmmaking careers, and they're just crushing it. So if you're interested, click the link below, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It really does help this channel grow. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey guys, my name is Matt Johnson with whoismatt.com.
In this video, I'm going to look at the best smartphones for shooting video going into 2021. Smartphones are becoming more and more powerful filmmaking tools. The cameras in these devices, especially in the flagship phones, are really challenging dedicated cameras. Like every video camera, smartphones have their advantages and disadvantages. Two mighty brands in particular have been fighting to produce the best video shooting experience in a smartphone. Of course, I'm talking about Apple's iPhone 12 range and Samsung with their S20 and Note 20 phones. Which one is looking like the best bet for 2021? There's more niche brands like Sony and LG who also push the video shooting side of their devices. Oh, but wait! Before we start talking about devices, I need to mention how smartphones are different to regular cameras, and that's the increasingly powerful software being developed, such as Dolby Vision, HDR, 10+, and all kinds of stuff, which is now working away in your smartphone to boost the look of your videos. You see, there's a bit of a confusing conflict that's been brewing for a while. Most of this software is developed to be implemented using the native app of the phone in auto mode, but many smartphone filmmakers love to use apps like Filmic Pro, Moment, ProTake, MC Pro 24 FPS, and so on. And
Pam pi pam 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 bum bum bidi bum bum buri bum burum burum burum. Hey Raji. Hey Raji, thank you. Thank you. I see that. Yeah. I see the important there. Да, помню. So
There's all kinds of pros and cons to confusing conflict that's been brewing for a while. Most of this software is developed to be implemented using the native app of the phone in auto mode. But many smartphone filmmakers love to use apps like Filmic Pro, Moment, ProTake, MC Pro 24 FPS and so on. There's all kinds of pros and cons to using manual control or auto mode. And as someone who makes a living shooting smartphone video, whereas I used to just boot up Filmic Pro almost without thinking, I now find myself switching between auto mode. And as someone who makes a living shooting smartphone video, whereas I used to just boot up Filmic Pro almost without thinking, I now find myself switching between auto and manual control, Without thinking, I now find myself video, whereas I control or auto mode. And as someone who makes kinds of pros and cons to using manual control or auto mode. And as someone who makes a living shooting smartphone video, whereas I used to just boot up Filmic Pro almost without thinking, I now find myself switching between auto and manual control depending on what I want from the shot. And things like tone remapping can sometimes conflict with your manual control app. Problems like flickering skies, or a camera which refuses to retain the exposure settings you just set, and they start to ruin your shot. So that's something really important you need to think about before going ahead and choosing a device, especially if you're hoping to use manual control. Anyway, let's take a look at the best smartphone for shooting video for 2021. Once again, Apple has been changing the landscape of filmmaking this year, but not only with their iPhone range. Since they dropped Intel chips from their laptop and desktop computers, they've opened up an exciting new era where their smartphones and computers will operate under the same system. The new MacBooks and Mac Minis are lightning fast, but it's more affordable speed than before. And by comparison, the launch of the new iPhone 12 range created less of a buzz, despite the popular retro look of the iPhones, which is much loved. Less of a buzz, despite the popular retro look of the iPhones, which is much loved by iPhone fans. The general feeling is the devices themselves haven't made any giant leaps from the iPhone 11, more of a few tweaks here and there. The one big change to come for filmmakers is the inclusion of Dolby Vision in the iPhone 12 range. Dolby Vision is a system designed to shoot, master and deliver 10-bit HDR, which is high dynamic range, video. Why does this matter? In the past, smartphones, like many other non-professional DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, have captured video in an 8-bit H.264 or H.265 codec and captured video in an 8-bit H.264 or H.265 codec, and this is heavily compressed to reduce file sizes and enable them to be streamed or shared. But it also means discarding a lot of information from the video, which reduces dynamic range and makes it harder to color grade. This kind of video falls apart if you try to push it too much with color grading software. Bear in mind, anything shot in Dolby Vision will only contain the extra HDR quality when viewed via a system which supports it. For example, if you upload your Dolby Vision video to Twitter, YouTube, Facebook and so on, Dolby Vision, as far as I know, is not supported. Therefore, what you will get will be the standard dynamic range version of the video. Now, because Dolby Vision requires a license to use, and, well, it's complicated. Regardless of whether you have a Dolby Vision display or not, the iPhone 12 range of devices can use that extra information for color work later, which for filmmakers who want those color grading options is a big plus. The good news for iPhone filmmakers comes with the top of the range 12 Pro Max. This device is very big and comes with a 6.7-inch display. There's a 2.5 times telephoto lens, although that's only half the power of the top range Samsungs with their 5 times telephotos. The Pro Max also comes with a larger sensor than the rest of the iPhone 12 range, which gives it a better low-light performance. Now, the iPhone 12 range, and specifically the iPhone 12 Pro Max, produce top-of-the-range video, as you would expect, 4K resolution up to 60 frames per second. There's also support for 120 frames per second and 240 frames per second at 1080p resolution. Having said all that, there are some issues, so let's mention the minus points. Sometimes we want lens flares, but users have started to complain about the recent iPhones and the way they produce nasty looking reflections when light hits the lens at certain angles. Being kind, we can call them lens flares, but this problem does not seem to have been fixed and may even be worse in the iPhone 12 range. Now, you also get these flares in other devices, but usually it's just a small dot, but in the iPhone it seems to be much more prominent. if you're going to label something pro, then surely a minimum for professional filmmaking is manual control. For shutter speed, surely a minimum for professional filmmaking is manual control. For shutter speed, ISO, white balance and so on. But Apple's iPhones still don't carry their own native manual control with their devices. So we can install one of the many third-party apps like Filmic Pro, Mavis, ProTake and so on, right? Only problem is, all this software wizardry like tonal remapping sometimes conflicts with these apps and you get flickering skies and auto exposure overriding your settings. Well, these flicker wizardry like tonal remapping sometimes conflicts with these apps and you get flickering skies and auto exposure overriding your settings. Well, these two gripes aside, iPhones still produce amazing quality. Samsung brought out their 20 range of devices, the S20, S20 Pro, Pro Ultra, Note 20 and Note 20 Ultra in 2 stages. In 2020, S20 range in February and the Note 20 in August. Now the talk is that Samsung will launch the Galaxy S21 range on January the 14th next year. But the quality of video produced by Samsung devices is basically equal to the iPhone. Samsung tends to add more saturation, but otherwise there's really not much between them. As you would expect, the higher up the Samsung range you go, the better the cameras and video shooting performance. But all the Samsung S20 and Note 20 range include one S21 range on January the 14th next year. But the quality of video produced by Samsung devices is basically equal to the iPhone. Samsung tends to add more saturation, but otherwise there's really not much between them. As you would expect, the higher up the Samsung range you go, the better the cameras and video shooting performance. But all the Samsung S20 and Note 20 range include one front camera and 3 rear cameras, regular wide, ultra wide and telephoto. The Note 20 models have the 5x telephoto. One difference between iPhone and Samsung Ultra models is the ability to shoot 8K resolution. Well, as most of us can't view 8K resolution, let alone see the difference if we could, this probably isn't much use to us video shooters. I certainly wouldn't buy a S20 Ultra just for the 8K video. Another difference is Samsung's Pro Video mode. Now this is a native camera function which allows you to set and lock shutter speed, ISO, focus and all the rest. So that's pretty useful there. And instead of Dolby Vision, Samsung devices come with the HDR, you set and lock shutter speed, ISO, focus and all the rest. So that's pretty useful there. And instead of Dolby Vision, Samsung devices come with the HDR 10+ system. And while Apple is only just introducing this, Samsung have included this in their devices for some time. In terms of smartphone video quality, there's little difference between the two HDR systems. While iPhones can shoot slow motion at a max of 240 frames per second, Samsung's latest devices have the super slow-mo 960 frames per second option. Although this feature is limited to 720p, which is still considered high definition by the way. And so now onto the minus points. Well, for some reason, Samsung only allows you to access the main camera in Pro Video mode. There's no access to the selfie camera, ultra-wide or telephoto. The best thing would be if Samsung allowed Pro Video mode to access each lens, so you can decide for yourself. Even third-party apps like Filmic Pro cannot access the telephoto. That gripe aside, I really can't fault the new Samsung range. The main, larger sensor of the Note 20 Ultra even gives you a little extra shallow depth of field, and the quality of the footage is stunning. Which smartphone maker is doing the most for filming? Because is it Apple? Which smartphone maker is doing the most for filmmakers? Is it Apple or Samsung? The answer is Sony. Unlike Apple and Samsung, Sony makes professional level cinema cameras. So it's not surprising they introduced the first smartphone range with a serious native manual control app, the Xperia 1 and Xperia 5. That app is the Cinema Pro app. These phones and the app are developed alongside Sony's professional cameras. Sony have now released the new version of these phones, Xperia 1 Mark II and Xperia 5 Mark II. The Xperia 5 version, Mark 1 and 2, is virtually the same as the Xperia 1, just smaller. Both versions have the same front and rear cameras. For rear cameras, there's the now standard wide, ultra-wide and telephoto. And this triple camera array integrates tech from both Sony Alpha and Zoom.
Internacional.
Dice optics. The Xperias have a x3 telephoto with a 12 megapixel sensor. In fact, like Apple, Sony have stuck with the 12 megapixel sensor for all their cameras. However, these sensors are slightly different in terms of pixel size, and bigger pixels means better low-light performance. But the big difference is that their native Camera Pro app allows you to access all these lenses. Therefore, you can happily choose which lens you want to use, you know, as you would expect, from something labeled Pro. So the Cinema Pro app is stuck with the 12 megapixel sensor for all their cameras. However, these sensors are slightly different in terms of pixel size, and bigger pixels. Xperias have a x3 telephoto with a 12 megapixel sensor. In fact, like Apple, Sony have stuck with the 12 megapixel sensor for all their cameras. However, these sensors are slightly different in terms of pixel size, and bigger pixels means better low-light performance. But the big difference is that their native Camera Pro app allows you to access all these lenses. Therefore, you can happily choose which lens you want to use, you know, as you would expect, from something labeled Pro. So the Cinema Pro app has been updated for the new release. There's now support for 25 frames per second, Touch AF, autofocus, custom whitebands, metered manual, and some user interface improvements. There's also 2K 10-bit HDR at 120 frames per second and 4K 10-bit HDR 60 frames per second, said to be on its way via an Android update. Both old and new versions of the Xperia allow 10-bit color depth, which, you know, has only just arrived for the iPhone. Just saying. And now for some downsides. Some missing features in the Cinema Pro app compared to apps like Filming Pro and MC Pro 24PS. for example no scopes or histograms. But hopefully this is something Sony will bring in the future. I would say the Xperia's produced video, which has its own look, which is rather more muted than other devices. The colour is not out of the box so vibrant, and these softer, more natural tones don't kind of hit you in the face, but are perhaps easier on the eye over longer watching times. LG phones have included a dedicated Pro Mode video app for manual control since the V10 version, released way back in 2015. But the LG V range has a reputation of being great phones for shooting video at a lower price than their better known competitors. However, the most recent LG V60 Thin Q is still selling for around $700 or more, and this is for a device released in March 2020. Like the top Samsung phones, the LG V60 can shoot up to 8K. Nobody can view it, but you can shoot it. This device also lacks the telephoto lens, carrying only a wide and ultra-wide for rear cameras. The manual mode for video in the LG V60 Thin Q includes